Hi there, I'm James Hosmer, and this is my NPC presentation video. I'm going to begin by showing you my Trilo cards. We'll start with the toy item. We first had to block out the shape, give it some color, register whether it was in front of the NPC, register whether it was behind, register whether it was outside of the range of view. So that'll be a circle that the NPC can see within. We'll see that in a second. We're going to register whether it's between the sight threshold, so a very tight, narrow margin that is going to spook the goat as well. The goat being our animal, our NPC, a pygmy goat. It's adorable. You'll love it. We're also going to check if it's under that distance. So all three of these things being combined. And then we're also going to make sure the goat can aim, rotate itself. There's going to be a debugging button that I'm going to show you for that later. We'll see if it can move, translate following wherever the toy is, because it likes to chase that toy. And then we're gonna finally see if we can bring the toy out of the sight range of the goat, bring it all the way back in and spook it from behind. We'll get a registered surprise. Okay, these are all the things that the toy is going to do. Now the goat itself, we look over here, we're going to block out the pygmy goat shape. We're going to give it some color. The distance that the toy is to the goat is going to determine the behavior. Whether it's out of sight and the goat just sits there and wags its tail. Wagging the tail is also going to be a key thing we're going to look at. That's amazing. We're going to register whether or not the goat can see the toy or not, whether it's in front of it or not. And later, we're going to use vectors to do that. Then goat registers the side of the toy is facing. Same principle. And then we want to get that rotation into effect with the direction that the toy is and have it rotate towards it. Once we can do that, we want to get it to start chasing that toy. And finally, when it's chasing, we're going to have it be jumping a little bit. So when it jumps, the collision detection with the ground is going to be essential in order to get the goat to register when it can start jumping again. So it chases, and then we determine whether or not it's chasing or not chasing based on that distance. So a little checking there. And the goat's going to jump. It chases for natural behavior. We're going to, ultimately, that's what's going to be happening. I buried the lead a little bit. Goat's going to be bouncing around like a pygmy goat does. It doesn't run or trot. It hops, bump, 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 bump. And the key is when it stops in surprise. If that toy that it can't see sneaks up on it, it's going to jump straight up, just like a gazelle. It's going to stop straight upward and then re-engage the toy and start chasing. We got to make sure that that starting is higher than the normal jump because we're going to be using the same method. And also, finally, that the keys are, in fact, working and implemented for debugging. And that's going to be, a menu key. There's going to be toggling on and off of the lights that we see, so we can see what the goat can see. And we'll also see we can just manually rotate the goat in a direction to check that as well. So now on to the fun stuff. Here we go. We got our little goat. We can come in and take a nice little clean look at this beautiful goat. And now we got our toy. Very generic little box the goat's grown up to learn to play with. When we play, the goat begins to chase it. Now, if we turn off these lights with an L, also if we hit M, we see all of our options. M for menu, L for toggling the light direction, C for toggling whether or not it's going to actually be chasing, and R for manually rotating. So we'll test the little R. See, we can just manually rotate the goat. And when we use L, we can toggle on or off the light. And what the light is actually representing is if the goat can see it. So now we have the goat chasing, hopping, pygmy goat, running after its little toy. When we bring it out of the range of its view, way over here, the goat can't see. So we have the green light to represent that. When we bring it nice in, the blue light chasing it, chasing it, chasing it. So if we bring it all the way around and all the way back behind, and we sneak up on the little goat, when we sneak up, we get a little red. Now let's make sure we do this exactly. Bring it in behind. The goat stops. Oh, we surprised him, and now he starts chasing. Bring it out. Bring it back all the way. Oh, he saw it. Back behind. And surprised him, and he jumps a little bit higher as he's running around. And there we have it. So, going into the code a little bit, we have all of our nice references up here. Mostly rotation, translation, manipulation of the color, just to help us see the thing, enabling and disabling components, all these things, pretty generic stuff from the Unity site. We've got some timers to help us determine how long to regulate, all the movement. We have our other object that we're going to use. This is our reference to the toy, so that we can actually see where the toy is and make rotation adjustments to it and then be startled by it. We've set our distances here, the threshold for how far and how close it can be seen, as well as the distance that we're going to get startled by, the range of 5. Down here we got the rigid body, all of the variables we're going to need. On collision, this is going to help us reset to the ground. So when the ground, you can't be continuously jumping. So as soon as you hit the ground, we trigger this, and down here later, we're going to use this. We're going to toggle it back off and wait for it to be toggled back on true when they land again. But we're going to toggle this off in the jump. Update, we're going to check the persistent tail wagging. Oh, I forgot the tail wagging. We have to go look at this adorable little goat and his wagging tail. Look at that tail. Yeah, that was necessary. Down here, we've got the temp startle distance. So we're going to be checking the distance here with the calculate distance method. That's basically going to be using 2 separate vectors, subtracting their position, and if they're within the distance and it's not in front, we get startled, we set that jump, and then continue chasing. If it's not within that distance, we got to make sure that it's within at least the sight range, and that's between the lower and the upper sight range. And if it is indeed, then we begin to chase. And if it's in front, we stop chasing. Otherwise, we continue all these variables. We're going to be continuously jumping because that's how the goat acts. It hops up, and then we're going to translate it forward. But we're always going to give it a jump, a little bit of a upward boost with the add force right here on the rigid body. And then startled being set to false as soon as it is startled after that first giant stot. And finally, here's the persisting tail wag. So we're just going to rotate this tail, swing it back and forth. If it's moving left, set by a Boolean, then the tail is going to transform, rotate, and just continuously go up with a counter. And then as soon as it hits that limit, it's going to go back and rotate the opposite direction until that count, and then we're going to reset that counter. And then when that counter hits the limit, it's going to rotate back the other way. So we get that nice little delightful goat wagging tail.